Hi, so this is going to be a very basic intro to what you can do with Microsoft Azure, which is the hosting environment for Microsoft. So you could create a lot of virtual machines on here, but you could do a lot of other things also. So my perspective that I'm going to come with here is I'm a developer and a programmer and a software engineer. So I'm going to go through basically the things I need, which is to create a virtual network, to put virtual machines inside the network, and how that relates to kind of creating a host system, such as in my virtual network I'll create a domain controller, I'll create a web farm, I'll create an app tier, I'll create a database tier. So that's what I'm that's my point of view that I'm coming from when I'm doing this intro. So let me get started here. So this is the Windows Azure Portal console, which is the management console of Microsoft Azure. So you'll see here I have a bunch of devices or objects or VMs that I've created already. So from the left-hand menu you could access kind of and see all of the different things that you have. So I'm going to go through the most important part, which is the virtual machines. So here, when you create virtual machines, you could quickly create virtual machines from a bunch of images that are available. So you see here is a bunch of a lot of choices that you have. So that's creating the virtual machine, and of course it's billed by when the virtual machine's active. So if you stop it, it's not going to be billed. Typically, when I create a virtual machine, I use the 4 gigs for development, and I'm able to kind of restrict it to basically 6 cents an hour. So that's your virtual machines. Mobile services, I don't actually use that, so I can't speak about it. The cloud service, now this allows, from what I understand of it, it's kind of like a load balancer. So it'll give you a URL, and you could assign multiple virtual machines to this, to a particular URL. And you'll see here, this is the URL that I have. See, the SQL Server databases is exactly what it means. So you'll have access to a SQL Server database, but not to the server that it's on. So imagine if someone gave you an account of logging, the ability to log into a SQL Server database. Well, that's what this is. A storage, all of Microsoft objects use a storage service, and basically it's a kind of virtual location of where your virtual hard drives, where your images, where your files are stored for your account. And in particular, they're usually in a certain location. So for example, Azure is located probably in about 10 or 12 different regions. So you'll have East Asia here, you'll have the East US, you'll have South Central US, you'll have Japan, you'll have North Europe. So those are your storage locations, which is just grouping a bunch of objects for you to manage. And the reason why they do that is you could actually use PowerShell to manage the objects programmatically. And in some cases you really do need PowerShell to do that, because a lot of things are not available on the GUI. Hdinsight, I have no clue what that is. I guess it has something to do with clustering. Again, my perspective I'm coming from is really creating a dev environment that replicates production, or even creating a staging environment. So a lot of these, now your caching here is the distributed caching. So you could actually create a distributed caching server here, which is in this case it's your Redis cache. That looks like it's something new. BizTalk services, recovery services, your CDN. So you could actually create a bunch of resources and basically more or less static resources, put it around the globe, and actually reference it with one URL, and the URL would be directed to the most efficient location that the client is referring that URL from. Scheduler. So a lot of these I'm not too sure what it's for. I'm just going to go through them really quickly. Now here, the network, you could create a virtual network, and this is very important because this is in particular is what I start with when I create an environment, is to create the virtual network, which is a range of IPs that allows me to put my VMs into the network. So the reason why I do that is as a developer, I do want to replicate production as much as possible. So what I'll do is I'll actually create my own domain controller within this network, and then create a web tier, and then an app tier, and then a database tier along with it, so that it really does mimic production. So here you'll notice I created a staging area, a production area, and within your organization it might be beneficial for you to actually create a QA area, possibly, or a disaster recovery area. So these are fairly important concepts as far as segregating kind of or organizing your machines in specific networks. So that's really what that's for. These I'm going through really quickly. Now the Active Directory, I honestly am not sure what this is for. I suppose you could kind of create your own Active Directory in here, but my preference was to actually create a VM and promote my VM server as a domain controller and manage my Active Directory within that server. So there you go. That's really a quick overview of what Azure is, and if you want to get into more details, I have other videos that actually creates a VM, creates a virtual network, assigns static IPs, and creating a domain controller. So alright, hope that helps you and gives you a good overview of what Azure is, and thank you for watching.